This is the first quiz for the standard G.SRT.2. Our first question is to state if the triangles in each pair are similar, and if so, state how you know they're similar, and complete the similarity statement. So in this first question here, I can see that these two segments intersect each other, and what we know is that the angles that are formed are called vertical angles, and vertical angles are congruent. So we know that by the angle-angle similarity theorem, these two triangles are similar to each other. Now, the similarity statement needs to be in specific orders, and what we're told is triangle DEF is similar to, that's what this symbol here means, similar to, and then we've got to put in the triangle that it's similar to. Well, the first angle D is going to be congruent to angle D. So we've got triangle DEF is similar to triangle D. Now E is this angle here. We've got two arcs, so it must be similar to the triangle, or to the angle with two arcs in the other triangle. So we've got a B for our second vertex. And then this one doesn't have any arcs, and this one has no arcs, so we know it would be A. So triangle DEF is similar to triangle DBA, and that's by the angle-angle similarity theorem. Okay. This next question, we're specifically told that these triangles are similar to each other. Your first step should be to indicate what angles are congruent. So angle E is congruent to angle E because they're both in the same location in the notations. Okay, we've got angle F is congruent to angle B because they're both in the second vertex of the location. And then we've got angle G is congruent to angle C, again, because they're in the same location. So now that we have these angles notated, it's easy for us to see what sides correspond to each other. So we can see that side EF is between one arc and two arcs, so we can see that 88 should correspond to the other triangle, right, that the side length between one and two arcs, which would be 48. So 88 and 48, those correspond with each other. And then we've got between 1 and 3 arcs is our unknown of x, because we let our question marks be a variable. And we can see that between 1 and 3 arcs in our second triangle is 72. So now we've got that 88 times 72. So we have we've got 72 times 88 equals 48 times x, because we're going to cross multiply, and then we would divide both sides by 48. And when you do that, you get 132 is equal to x. Okay. Question number 3 is using the right triangle altitude hypotenuse theorem. We can see that we have an altitude here drawn from I don't know what's going on, from the right angle to the hypotenuse. And so what we know is a wonderful relationship is formed, and we can see that this piece here is 9. If that piece is 9 and the total length is 25, we know that this piece here must be 16. Okay, so then we can draw some similar triangles. One triangle would have x here and 16 there, and then this smaller triangle here would have 9 here and x there. Now we can set up our proportions. Okay, we would have x divided by 16 is equal to 9 divided by x. And you should see that because this is the altitude, this is how we can check to make sure things are in the correct order. We know we should be multiplying our altitude by itself. It's using that geometric mean. So we've got x squared is equal to 9 times 16. X squared is equal to 144. And if we take the square root of both sides, we get x equals 12. Your next problem is using the angle bisector theorem. Okay, and the angle bisector theorem tells us that when an angle is bisected, which we have indicated right here because these two smaller angles are congruent to each other, so we know this must be the angle bisector. What happens is we get a a relationship between the side of the triangle and the part of the triangle that's been intersected. And again, we're going to let our question mark be x, and we can see that this side here, so we've got 8 and x, so we have 8 divided by x is going to be equal to the relationship between this side here of 10 and this partial side of 5. Now if we cross multiply, we would have 8 times 5, or 40, is equal to 10 times x, or 10x. Divide both sides by 10, and we get 4 is equal to x. Okay. The next problem is using the triangle proportionality theorem, and that says that if we have indicated that these lines are parallel to each other, that they intersect the sides in a proportional manner. So we can start by just setting up a proportion, and we can start with one side and just move to the common vertex here. So we can say that 25 divided by 3x is equal to 10 divided by 6. That is one possibility of setting this up. And if we set it up in this manner and we cross multiply, we'll get 25 times 6 is 150, and that equals 3x times 10, which is 30x. And then divide both sides by 30, and you get x equals 5. Okay, another way would be to set it up so that these pieces are in the same location, and that's because they're proportional pieces as well. So we could say 10 over 25 is equal to 6 over 3x, and if we do that, we're going to get the exact same answer of x equals 5. There are multiple ways of setting up each problem. You just need to make sure that one of your methods is mathematically sound. Okay, and no matter how you set it up, you should get the correct answer. Okay, and then this last question here, we're told that this is a 90-degree angle. We're given two sides, and we're looking for a third side. Well, what we know is whenever we have a 90-degree angle, we should think about Pythagorean theorem. And the Pythagorean theorem says that a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and b are the legs that make up the 90-degree angle, and c is always our hypotenuse. Okay, so it's a good idea when you have a problem like this for you to go ahead and notate where the hypotenuse is. That's the one piece that can't change locations, okay? So A and B are interchangeable, but C is not. C must always be the hypotenuse. So if we set this up, we can say that x is A and B is 5, and that works. So we would simply say x squared plus 5 squared equals 13 squared. So x squared plus 25 equals 169. We would subtract 25 from each side, and we get x squared equals 144. Take the square root of both sides, so we get x is equal to 12. And since we are given units, we must include our units. So that would be 12 feet.